Let's get this adjusted here. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll get started with this week's disqualification show in just a moment. As you can see, we're getting things set up here a little bit. There we go. It's a little better. All right, we get the thread posted here, and we'll get started here. No shortage of stuff to talk about this week, I'll tell you that much. All right. Hopefully we're coming through okay, unlike our Pocono show here. All right. Excellent. All righty. So, ladies and gentlemen, we'll wait till a few more people come in, but of course, the story of today, certainly the events from the end of the Truck Series race. And of course, the one time I had planned on doing this show after the Xfinity race to sum everything up. Certainly didn't think the race was going to get postponed to today. And that ends up being our first disqualification of the year. I'm sure those of you in the chat already know that Ross Chastain, who is apparently on his way to winning his first Truck Series race since declaring for the Truck Series points, he'd obviously won earlier this year at Kansas, was later disqualified because the front of his truck was, quote, extremely low. And that is not good in the eyes of NASCAR. And consistent, I got to hand it to them. They were consistent with this policy. It was the first penalty there for the disqualification rule. And being in the middle of working on the article there, we've since had to restructure it a bit and talk about Ross Chastain. So we'll definitely talk about that here. And it's going to be a little bit more free form this week. Again, like I said in last week's show, I want to kind of do a little bit more of a relaxed tone. I think before I'd been trying to do a inside Winston Cup racing, but in fast forward, and I kept running out of stuff to say at the end. So I think we'll try a little bit more relaxed thing. And again, anything you guys want to talk about in the chat here, go ahead and chime in. But obviously a big part of this is we're certainly going to talk about is the events from the Truck Series race today and Ross Chastain's disqualification. The article I'm still working on at the moment. I'll give you kind of the story on my end at least. I'm actually doing this. This is one of as I mentioned before, I work night shift at a hospital. I actually just came off a shift this morning, and I was tracking the beginning of the last place battle. I pulled off somewhere so I could track the results at the back of the field there and see what was happening there with Tyler Ankrum and the number 87 truck. And got that information, listened to it on the radio on the way back. And I had to pull off again because I was getting tired. It's about lap 122, right before the Johnny Sauter accident. I just pull over and sleep for a bit there. And I wake up and I hear, oh, Ross Chastain won and Johnny Sauter got parked. And oh my gosh, just all the crazy stuff happened at that point. And I'm like, okay, so I come back here. I pull the computer up, start working on the article. And I figured, oh, well, there's a nice little time here between the Xfinity race and the truck race and the postponement and all that. And it seemed like a great opportunity to actually get the article done. And I get all the way down to the race itself. I get a full-on biography of Tyler Ankrum together because that was a great story. Not a great story, but an interesting story, given that he'd been driving for DGR Crossley this year and ends up losing sponsorship there. And Joe Nemechek steps up and has him drive the 87. And of course, the Democo team doesn't have a lot of funding, and they didn't really, they didn't have any sponsors really put on the truck, at least the pictures. Big thanks to Colby Evans, by the way, for providing those pictures. Fantastic work there. Again, I love it when fans send pictures from the track there because I can't be at all the races. So that stuff is absolutely invaluable. So kudos to him. I'm going to be putting some of that in the article too. But seeing him in that truck there and having this all set up where we talk about a driver that had some adversity, and it was something in the news this past week and kind of focus on that. And then all of a sudden I get one message back on one of these tweets that says, "Oh, well, yeah, but the inspection really had a role today." I'm like, what really? Like, I didn't even think to follow really the disqualification for that, and I to be honest, I hadn't really thought about the factor of that being something that would happen in the Xfinity, the Truck Series, even though it's obviously a rule for all the top three major series. I didn't think that we would have a disqualification issue in the lower series. For some reason, I thought it was for sure going to be the Cup Series, which is why I started doing the show. Because we'd seen so much of that last year. I mean, capped by Kevin Harvick's thing at Texas. What we've seen this year, though, is the Cup Series guys, when they get caught, it seems to be before the race even starts. And we have people that, get their laps negated, and it's been a different scenario there. It completely blindsided me. I mean, for sure. And it was unfortunate because I know a lot of people were writing their articles too at the front of the field and talking about Ross Chastain and, him breaking through and now getting in a position where he could get into the top 20 in points and transition into the playoffs. Suddenly that becomes just completely out the window. And now you have a situation where he goes back to my page. And now we're going to be talking about what's interesting is like now I'm talking about the last place finisher and the race winner and how both ended up, in a battle for last that way. And it was a challenge to kind of figure that out. You'll see this when the article gets posted. What I'm going to do is wait until after the disqualification procedure or whatever happens in inspection for Xfinity goes through. We'll finish that article because I want the truck article to be the lead. I want to have that be on top. So I'm going to post that one after the show here, but you'll be able to check that out. I got some really good statistics in there about other past disqualifications. Maybe I'll do something with the infographics this week to kind of tie that into because I know that's going to have a lot of interesting aspects to it. But just a couple of stats I pulled up on there, and I'll probably after that I'm just going to crash out and regroup for tomorrow, and we'll have some more information there. But I do want to still do the show here today because it's been definitely a lot to talk about, and definitely a lot of interesting situations there. It does seem, and I'm sure from this standpoint, when NASCAR institutes a new rule, it does seem like a soft target usually ends up being the subject of one of these. We think back to the random drug testing, and then not long after that, Jeremy Mayfield's deal. You think back to some of these other technical inspection rules, and then which teams actually get caught with that. I mean, I was about to say Carl Long's the thing at the Winston, but the thing about engine size, that's a much older rule. We go back to Richard Petty on that. I'm sure there's been other examples. Memory fails at this point, but again, much like this, it's unfortunate. I'm sure NASCAR in this case probably would have rather not done this, but I mean, just think about all the things that Ross Chastain has gone through to this point in his career. Just developing with JD Motorsports, and just flying below the radar and having some great performances out there beyond the limits of the equipment there. I mean, Johnny Davis is a longtime team owner in the Xfinity Series, still runs multiple cars now, even with the limited funding that they have. And Ross, through a number of those runs, has had some good performances there. And then along the way, I remember when he made his Cup debut at Dover, when he got like 20th there, driving for Premium Motorsports. And Jay Robinson's cars aren't the best ones out there either. I thought that was a very surprising run for him too. And then, of course, you go back to the Xfinity Series, Darlington just last year. He gets into that race and he almost wins it. Kevin Harvick has to basically, pull a Lewis Hamilton there and try to take him out of the thing. And then it just didn't, it didn't even stop him then. He comes back at Las Vegas, the title sponsors race, and he goes out there and wins that, and gets the full-time ride. I remember just him walking by at the Phoenix Media Center there with a smile just 2 miles wide there after getting the full-time ride for Chip Ganassi this year. And that just being that excited about it, and then it falling through with the whole DC Solar thing. And then he comes back in this year, and he's running all 3 series. Then he finally gets that win at Kansas. And then he's like, okay, well, I'm 13th in the Xfinity Series points. Maybe you have a chance to get in the playoffs, but this truck team, They've been top 10 in every single race, picking up stage wins, picking up stage points. If they had the points from those races, they'd be right in the thick of it there. And of course, the win would put them over the top. Now they have to go in there and have that win invalidated, start from 0 points. He just starts doing that last week at Charlotte, gets another top 10 there, comes into this race, now a standalone weekend where you don't have any of the Cup guys there. You have people like Chandler Smith and stuff in the lower and the even top funding guys there. But it's you get all this coming together. It seemed like this, even though he has multiple races to get in there, it's not that many races, and a lot of them are companion events. Gateway's not. I mean, they're going to be running up here at Sears Point here, but Iowa's one of the few left that they have a standalone deal there before the cutoff. So I thought this was really like a must-win for him, and I'm sure I'm not the only one that was thinking this here too. And certainly he was thinking that from leading 141 laps. I mean, low nose or not, that was a fast piece of equipment. But it just doesn't happen. It didn't quite work out. Didn't quite work out that way. But I mean, it did at first, winning the race there and doing it running away and laughing all the way to the bank there. But it's unfortunate. I mean, the rules are the rules. This is what we all wanted. The alternative is equally frustrating. I mean, if he was in a situation, this was pointed out, I think you brought this up, Benjamin, on there, where you were talking about if it had been Joey Logano's situation, like at Richmond a while back, where he wasn't disqualified, he got to keep the win, but he didn't get to keep the points in the transfer into the playoffs, the net effect would have been the same. He would have had to win again. And the hit in the points would have really been a factor for Chastain because he's got to get in the top 20. That's less of a concern because, I mean, I think the 20th in points doesn't really have that many at this moment, but he can still kind of get work back up there. But, it'll be interesting to see what he does from here. I think, once again, just like Al Neese said in the press release, they're going to load up and head to Gateway and then just focus on winning there. And what's it going to be? It'll be interesting. I think they're going to be certainly ones to watch again. Definitely going to be watching it closely with the rest of you guys. One thing it's frustrating for Ross Chastain, but you got to say, I mean, this is a guy who consistently seems to not let these things get to him. I don't know if even this is. I'm sure it hurts. I'm positive it hurts because, you could just see he's very transparent with his excitement. But he's got plenty of chances. Well, not plenty of chances left. He's got one fewer chance now. I mean, like 7 races now until the cutoff? I mean, it's gonna be close. But you know what? If I were NASCAR, I'd also think, look, this is something we need to play up. This is something we need to talk about. This guy is tearing things up here. If it hadn't been for this infraction, he would have still had this top 10 streak going. He is the hottest driver on the circuit. He has figured out what Brett Moffitt and the Hattori team did last year, where they were just able to just pull things out with those dramatic finishes. He's in that kind of position this year. And the racing gods are fickle. You could be in one position this time and another position a different time, and you never know what's going to happen. But you just don't ask questions when the luck is going your way. But it's an unfortunate situation there. But I'm sure they'll figure it out. I'm sure they're going to make sure that it doesn't happen at Gateway in particular, because again, I think the standalone races are going to be even more of his best chance to get in there. I know, has Kyle Busch exhausted his number of starts in the Truck Series? I think he has, because I'm sure if he hadn't, he'd be running as many of these as possible to try to get that up to 200 or whatever the statistic is at the moment now. It's unfortunate. I mean, this is there you go. 5 wins, 5 allowed starts. There you go. But yeah, it's an unfortunate situation there. But again, I think the alternative, it's worth avoiding the alternative. And this is, at the end of the day, I mean, certainly in cases of doing this show, this is one of the things that we've been looking ahead to. You don't hope for a disqualification, but it's interesting when it does happen, because I mean, look at it today. This ended up being like a very big thing, and now, much like with Kevin Harvick last year when he got his first last place finish at Charlotte, suddenly the bottom of the field is playing a little bit of a bigger role in the storylines here. Suddenly other people are actually asking, oh, well, okay, he finished last. I mean, what does that mean? Or he's disqualified. Where does that place it in the sport's history? I saw Jim Utter and others trying to clamor around for the statistics there. And that's exciting. That's great, because that shows just how important a full field view is of the sport, that you can't just look at the front of the field, because every once in a while you get something like this where the guy gets dropped back there, and then what does that mean? What is the significance of that, and where is that place and everything? So an interesting deal there, and going to be looking ahead to seeing what's happening there. And of course this brings to the other controversy, the controversy that was going to be the controversy before this all happened. Johnny Sauter's angle there with Austin Hill in the number 16. We mentioned the Hattori team there. I think back to Matt Kenseth's deal with Joey Logano, and certainly what I was thinking at the time was, okay, but for Kenseth, that was the coolest thing I think Kenseth's ever done in his career, because he plays it so serious and plays it so straight, doesn't show a lot of emotion. It's hard to tell when something really does bother him. And you have to place that within the context of that time period there. Joey Logano was making a mockery of that round of the championship there. And he was looking to squeeze out anybody in there, and especially Kenseth. And he knew that Kenseth, with his career and being a factor in the championship just a couple of years before going against Jimmy Johnson, not to mention his own title in 2003, if he could bump him out by winning every race in that round, that was the way to do it. And if he could also spin him out of the race at Kansas, at one of Kansas' best tracks, even better. So the accident in Martinsville was in that larger context. And it wasn't just that accident in isolation. If it were just that out of nowhere, I think a lot of people will be looking at that and be like, what the heck was going on there? And I think that was what happened today with Johnny Sauter and Austin Hill. There hasn't been a long-term rivalry that we can see, at least that, you would think that Fox Sports 1 and these other networks would be talking the heck out of that if that were a big story right now. But it hasn't been. And I think a lot of us are still trying to figure out what was going on in that moment. Just a little bit of a scuffle there that went out of control. But, as to what happens with that, I thought the Kenseth thing was just, drivers settling it out on the racetrack, and that was that. And, they create a championship format that encourages that kind of crazy stuff to happen. This is still the regular season for the Truck Series. And again, between two drivers that haven't had a whole lot of history, at least that's been publicized, it's very possible this is happening behind the scenes. Maybe those two don't like each other. We're just not seeing it. But that's been a whole different deal. So if it gets treated in the exact same way, as the Kenseth thing, I think that would be fair. I think they're probably going to suspend Sauter. I don't know for how long. Some people are calling for even more dramatic things, like invalidating his playoff berth there from his win earlier this year. I think that's excessive. I mean, come on, that didn't happen back then. It's just a completely different situation there. So I wouldn't look at it that way. But but an unusual set of circumstances there. Going to be interested to see what happens in the days and weeks ahead. Excuse me. Let me get the race results up here. We'll do a little bit of our inside Winston Cup format here from the other races, and we'll talk a bit more about the statistics as to Ross Chastain along the way. Okay, electrical issues. Showing it unofficially electrical issues, the issue for Josh Bilicki that caused him to finish last today. An unfortunate run today for the RSS racing team. Even Ryan Sieg spinning some some laps there behind the wall with a mechanical issue. But the official results of at least the Racing Reference, they've refreshed it so that it actually shows 200 laps completed for Chastain and 141 laps led, but then still being categorized last. I mean, this is a situation that's different from other races in the past. When I saw other people asking about when was the last time that somebody either led this many laps and finished last, or was disqualified as a result, or when was the last time that somebody had led this many laps and then the second place finisher didn't lead any. Somebody found a scoring error one that resulted in, I believe, Lee Petty winning a race without leading a lap. I missed that one because I was just looking at the ones where the disqualification was last place finisher and kind of counting it backwards from there. In those instances, it's interesting because you look in the further back, and the disqualification is almost counted as if the truck or I guess this in NASCAR it counts the car, of course, as if the car wasn't even there. And so there is no car to lead those laps. And so this car is categorized at the back almost like, I think the justification is that, completed 200 laps, but it's almost as if they were black flag. They got the black flag with the crosses through it. And they stopped scoring. And although, well, I mean, not quite that way, because it still counts them as completing that number of laps, but it doesn't count them towards going towards the finish, and it doesn't count them as leading any of those laps. So it very well could be that you have several instances of a driver who won a race back then and led a good portion of the laps, and then those laps don't count for the disqualification at the end, and then they end up being distributed among other drivers there. We talked about in the Cup Series, the previous most laps led in a Cup race where the driver finished last was Greg Biffle in 2008 at Darlington. That had nothing to do with the disqualification. That was an engine failure with the car tomorrow. And the car tomorrow back then was so durable that everybody could bounce off the wall, and they would cause damage, but they get back out there. You didn't have the crash block back then either, so you had a lot of people that were just running until the cars just broke. And so you could have somebody that was up there and leading that many laps and still finish last. Denny Hamlin is another example of that in 2010 at Atlanta, where he led, I believe, 74 laps of that one and still finished last. Those are the two higher records. Certainly 141 laps is far and away much more than what we'd seen from those examples. And it would be a record across all three series. The 95 laps led by Biffle are also the most led across the top three series before today. So definitely some history in that sense. Certainly not history that Ross Chastain or his fans would certainly want, but this is the nature of the last place deal here. So that does prevent Tyler Ankrum from finishing last, as we talked about, driving for Nemco to try to keep going as close to a full season as possible after his deal with the 17 truck went back to Rafael Lessard. They're still going to be staying in touch with the DGR Crossley team, according to the video that Ankrum tweeted earlier this week. But we'll see how that shapes up here in the weeks coming ahead, especially if it's going to be as recent as Gateway next week, or if it's going to be much later down the stretch into the playoffs. We'll see what happens on that. The reorganization there at the bottom of the field that also prevented Johnny Sauter from getting his first bottom five finish of this year. He was going to be in the bottom five after he was parked there after the Austin Hill incident, but he ends up finishing 27th, just outside the bottom five, and still in the bottom 10. I believe that the other one that was saved from it too, it also prevented Jesse Little from having a bottom 10 finish, and so it does change the rankings there. When I post the article later tonight, it's going to have the rankings in accordance with Ross Chastain being in last place, but I'm also keeping bookmarked some of the statistics there from Tyler Ankrum, just in case the last place finish or the disqualification is rescinded for any reason. I'm not counting on that happening. I think the way that this was described about the nose being extremely low, and the nature of this, I don't think it's going to get overturned. I don't think we're going to be in a James Hunt tires are too wide kind of situation here. But you never know. You never know. Again, first disqualification resulting in a last place finish in Truck Series history. I believe it's the 28th disqualification across NASCAR's top three series. Not a very common last place finish if you think about all of NASCAR history being thousands of races. Just 28 out of that is not a whole heck of a lot. Let me confirm that here on the statistics. And yes, 27 coming into it, so 28 today. That now ties it with Piston. The Piston reason out for last place finishers there. Let's see. So I'm just checking out. So looking at the Truck Series rule here. So Juan Manuel Gonzalez driving Jennifer Jo Cobb's primary truck. Unfortunately, that didn't turn out the way that I'm sure either of them wanted. Had a couple of problems with the right front. Ultimately sent the truck into the wall. Some pretty heavy damage to the right front of the truck there. Certainly hoping that Jennifer Jo Cobb is able to cobble together her team there for the races ahead. We'd seen this earlier the last time they ran the two trucks. The same race at Kansas. Cobb herself wrecked the number 10 there, and then had to drive the number 0 in the race that was originally going to be run by Joey Gase. Gase ended up parking the damaged number 10. We'd seen Cobb do this a few times before. I believe Gateway just a couple of years ago. They had a very identical situation there and had to run a beat-up truck there and at least get the starting, money or whatever the situation was versus a did not start, and then being classified further back in the field. Trey Hutchins getting back in the race, driving after the 14 got wrecked at Texas last week. He ends up driving for Joe Nemechek and finishing in the 29th position there. It's interesting to see these small teams kind of helping these other guys out who are just kind of facing a little bit of adversity. It seems like, especially Nemco in particular. I mean, the Joe Nemechek team, they have so much experience, but they never seem to be able to land a decent sponsor to get that team going. I mean, they always seem to be running these just plain black trucks with a few sponsors, a few well-wishers on there. And, again, from those pictures that were being shared online there, you really do get a sense that there's a lot of other small brands that are backing up these teams, but it's just not enough. And, of course, you see these guys, this one's out 17 laps with brake issues, the other one's 61 laps with brake issues. Whether or not that was actually happening or not, most likely in these situations where they don't have a whole lot of sets of tires and stuff like that, and certainly from the history of the 87 in particular, that's usually been a start and park injury, and the 8 has fallen into that too in recent weeks. So that's been unfortunate. And Chad Finley rounding out the bottom 5, the number 42. So good to see him back out there. Finley returning to, assuming he runs Gateway next week, I believe he will, because that was the race last year that he brought the 42 team out there the first time. And they had a really good run out there. I believe got a top 10 there, so that was impressive. We'll see what they can do in their return. I think that'll be an interesting their driver to watch. It's too bad the Tyler Hill had to finish so far back. I think they had some issues in the Hill Motorsports team. It's neat to see the 56 out there and trying to get the best run that they can. The independent spirit, the underdog spirit, still very much alive in the truck series, and I think we'll see Chastain kind of bounce back here in the next couple of weeks, and hopefully we'll see what happens going forward from there. It's a great story, and I think again NASCAR needs to do more to actively promote Chastain's rally and treat it much like somebody going for the home run record in baseball or something like that. They're like, look, this is the situation. He has to get in the playoffs. He probably can, but his season starts at 0, like Formula One style. He's going to go out there and just try to win whatever he can win and get up there. So, we'll see what the situation is. Let me look at the rest of the results here. So Brett Moffitt, we mentioned him earlier. He ends up being the beneficiary of all this and being credited with the win, even though he didn't lead any of the laps. Chandler Smith had a great start at the beginning of it there. The radio people seemed really impressed by how much he was gapping the rest of the field there. Ends up finishing 8th at the end of the day, losing spots on pit road where he apparently had a radio issue and they had somebody climbing through the passenger side window. Then he engaged the clutch and almost brought the crew member out with him. So, little mistakes you make as a rookie when you're starting out, but then that all shakes out. Let's see. Brennan Poole just barely misses a top 10, finishing in the 11th spot. Kyle Benjamin got a good bounce back there, the number 45 that Chastain used to drive. He had a miserable run in Texas where he hit the wall there and ended up finishing in the bottom 5. This time gets a 13th place finish. Let's see. Jordan Anderson, another top 20 for him. That's good. Gus Dean bounces back from his last place run at Texas and finishes in the 20th spot. CJ McLaughlin, the ARCA driver, makes his first series start. He finishes 23rd, right ahead of Norm Benning, and right behind Jesse Little. Jesse Little a little off in the field there. I mean, that team's been really impressive. Certainly last year, it seemed like they really had some stuff going there as a part-time effort. But they'll figure things out there. Maybe it just wasn't a very good track for them. Excuse me. But Rafael Lessard finishing in the 9th spot, driving in place of Tyler Ankrum there. Still showing that the DGR Crossley team, they got some good equipment behind them there. Of course, Kyle Busch, development driver, that helps with that too. But like I said, Ankrum had done even better than that before, finishing 3rd after spinning down pit road at Texas, and that was really impressive. And let's see. Where are we with this? Oh, very interested in the story of Lou Goss. Big thanks to our ARCA contributor William Saki there for sending the article on this, because this driver is from his neck of the woods up in Wisconsin. Lou Goss there is the driver who, as I brought up in the entry list storylines from this article, that Goss was going to get into the truck series for the first time this year. What he did was he bought Mike Harmon's truck, and that team, we haven't seen them since Mosport last September, or last August rather. And 74 truck we haven't seen really there. He's been focusing more on the Xfinity Series side of it. But he had the truck, didn't have an engine or a transmission in it. Apparently Goss picked it up. Harmon helped him kind of put it back together again, get an engine together, get a transmission together, and they brought the truck to the track. I'm sure, taking advantage of the fact that Harmon was going to be in the area and running the Xfinity race. That's what I'm assuming, because other than that, the truck itself wasn't ready to compete. It didn't have, the entire engine wasn't quite finished. Somebody said that they didn't have a radiator in there. The gentleman that was sending the pictures from the track there also pointed out that they didn't have a fuel cell in the truck. You look at the pictures of the truck, and it didn't have any decals on the front of it. Less important, of course, but I'm sure maybe in technical inspection, NASCAR gets picky about that stuff, about how these vehicles present themselves for the race. Just wasn't allowed to start the race, so wasn't allowed to take any practice laps, but made an appearance. They rolled it off the truck. People got some pictures of it. I guess rolled it back up, and they're sending it out to Gateway right now to get ready for that race. So it'll be interesting to see what the 74 could do. A tall order. I mean, they're starting from zero again, much like we've seen with some of these other startups here, but not with nearly the resources of even like Al Neese's team or anything like that. But this is what the sport is all about. That's the passion that drives it. If you go in there, you get your NASCAR license, you get a vehicle together, it passes inspection, you do at least one practice lap, you're in the race. If there's no other qualifiers to bump you out. We've seen a lot of drivers get really close to that and not quite get there. You think about James Hilton, the late James Harvey Hilton. The last race that he ever attempted was at Daytona in 2009. Not the one in 07 when he drove for Richard Childress and almost raced his way in. In 2009, he was going to do it again. He drove for a car, I think James Carter, or John Carter, not James Carter, James Carter of Mars. John Carter was fielding it. The number 08 car, and they couldn't get a practice lap in. They were thrashing at it to try to get the car to start. It wouldn't start. They got all the way to happy hour and the happy hour, I guess, before the duels, and tried to get it out there. Never turned a lap. They forced him to withdraw, and then of course, unfortunately, James Harvey never attempted another Cup race again. Situation remains the same there today. So that was the reason Lou Goss was pulled out, and then Daniel Sassonet was going to debut a third truck for Josh Realm's team. Good to see them expand. I'm sure they're looking at some of these entry lists that have been shorter and looking at fielding extra trucks, even if you're just bringing out your backup and just changing the number Johnny McFadden style to throw together another entry and put somebody in there to be a grocery getter, as Jimmy Means called them. That could be enough to fill out a field, and you never know what's going to start there. But Sassonet gets pulled out of the field. Sassonet was struggling earlier in his debut back at Martinsville. I remember he was really far off the pace when I was looking at the last car statistics. But they got to learn somehow. You jump into the deep end and you don't know what's going to happen. Let's see. Looking at the rest of the finishing order here, Stuart Friesen, top 5. Still blue chip guy for that. Get some agua here. Looking here. Goodness me. I'm so sorry, guys. I'm gonna be awake here for a little bit longer, and then maybe calling it a night. Goodness me. Okay. Let's look at the Xfinity race from today. It just wrapped up. We're still waiting to see if Josh Bilicki is going to be your last place finisher, or if it's going to be Christopher Bell, who, much like Chastain, dominated the race, leading 186 of 250 laps, and won both stages and took the win out front. Cole Custer in second. But the bottom of the field is the more interesting part, of course. We're going to go right down to there. We're going to hit the scroll here and get down to there. Interesting bit of movement there at the back of the field. We had originally 39 drivers entered. You had Rick Ware's team, which has attempted, I believe, every race this year. It only missed one back at Texas. They ended up withdrawing for the race without a driver listed. They were going to be in there to try to bump the field and maybe would have actually qualified for it and made it interesting further back in the field, because we'd actually seen the 17 do pretty well, especially with Bailey Curry. A little bit less or so with Kyle Weatherman. It seemed like he struggled a little bit more in his starts. But ends up pulling the car out of the field. That's a situation there where the Circuit City car is trying to qualify for the Circuit City race. The H2 Motorsports car with Shane Lee. Good to see Lee back out there, being a part-time guy, originally driving for Richard Childress Racing. Although I think some contracts definitely changed hands if he's driving a Toyota Supra now. And and of course, I'm just as shocked as the rest of you that Circuit City still exists. I think I talked last week about the one that's blocking our freeway. But long after it's gone, the brand is still out there, and I guess making do with their internet presence. And let's see, where did they finish? 18th spot there. So 2 laps down. First car 2 laps down. The only car 2 laps down was Shane Lee. And finishing ahead of such guys as the Childress car with Joe Graff and Stephen Light and Mike Harmon and these other guys. A lot of guys falling out of the race. A lot of attrition. All the way down. I mean, only 24 cars finished the race under power. And so you can see definitely the benefit to Ryan Sieg trying to get back out there and do the best he could. Of course, fuel pressure problems still eliminated him from the race, but he climbed all the way from 37th to 30th at the finish there, and those few points can make a difference. So certainly where he ranks in the points now, and looking ahead to where he's going to be with the next Iowa race. Brandon Brown, unfortunate situation there. I mean, I glanced at the results there, and he was still running 16th, like he had it just about every week. And then all of a sudden, he comes down pit road. A lot of smoke in the cockpit, much like Jimmy Spencer and at Daytona in 1991, or Greg Biffle, Clint Boyer at Sears Point back in 2016 when he was driving for H. Scott Motorsports. You get that smoke in the cockpit, and it just burns, and it's just like. And of course, you're in a closed cockpit vehicle with really limited ventilation and a closed helmet. I mean, that's just got to be horrifying there with the smells that come in there. You definitely got to get out there and get that oxygen quickly. But it was good that they interviewed him. Again, Alan Cavana is a really good reporter, and the other people they had there, Hermie Sadler and stuff too, to kind of get the story a little bit on what was happening there. But good to see that he's okay. But yeah, an unfortunate situation there. It looked like that was their Charlotte car, the '68 team that they were debuting that week, then running his traditional number 86 this week. But then certainly one of he's now had, I believe, now 3 finishes outside the top 20 this year, but 2 in the most recent rounds there. So they got a little bit of a part to rebound from there. But in the meantime, further up in the rankings there, we'd seen Greg Alding finishing in the 14th spot, continuing to be the top 15 driver like he's been this year. Ray Black Jr., his teammate, just 2 spots back behind him in 16th spot. They're just staying right in there and doing the very best that they can. It's unfortunate to see Ryan Ellis get penalized so early in the race. I know he was really looking forward to driving for BJ McLeod there. Had a starting penalty there and finishing in the 23rd spot, ends up ultimately 6 laps down to the race winner. Chad Fincham had a lot of problems out there. I kind of liked how that car looked this week, by the way. 42, I thought looked kind of neat. The Supra and the way they arranged the tape on the front grille looked really old school for me somehow, almost like an old ARCA car or something. But unfortunately, that car got used up pretty good there. But still finished the race though, 4 laps down, but in the 21st spot. Let's see. Unfortunate for David Starr and the Jimmy Means team. They had an engine failure. They ended up being down in the 34th position there. Morgan Shepherd showed some good speed in qualifying and started in the 29th spot there, but still brake issues there. Another early exit for him, the 35th spot. And that's yeah, that's about the long and short of it on that one. But Christopher Bell is still the one we're waiting on, and we'll see what the timer is here. Okay, we're about halfway through. We have about let's see, we're about 47 minutes into the wait here after the race. Excuse me. Let's see here. See, passion's running high in the chat here about the yeah, the race team alliance and the line rule and all that. I mean, yeah, there's there's a lot with all those, but yeah, that's the, you know, you're not, it's not an RTA issue for the truck series, of course, because the truck series doesn't have the charter system, only the Cup series has that, so that's a whole different situation there. But I agree that the charter system excuse me, I agree that the charter system and the yellow line rule are compelling concerns and things that need to be either undone or just completely fixed. But you know, whether it's a causation from one to the next, I wouldn't go that far quite really. But yeah, it's you know, I've definitely said my piece on that, but there's a lot of different little details there. But you know, a lot of things that need to be worked on in the sport. But you know, I think if we treat each one of them separately and say, okay, we're going to point at this, and that. I still go by the Thanos example. I still think if you know, if you have the Infinity Gauntlet and you can just snap your fingers and get rid of half of the stuff in the sport, I think, you know, half of just about everything. I wouldn't have the field. I would double that. If there's a way, I'd do the reverse snap or whatever the equivalent of that is to get that going and get us some big entry lists. But everything else, like the way the broadcasts are handled, the way that how many people are there, how many people are covering the race, the different studios trying to bounce off each other and stuff like that. There's just a lot of unnecessary stuff out there. They get rid of a lot of the music and when it's used. I get rid of a lot of the graphics and when they're used, the graphics don't say anything. Ooh, these are the pavement guys. These are the dirt guys. Like whatever. But you know, I don't know. I got to the point. I got to the point I was doing the terrible broadcast thing on the Twitter there towards the end. And it was just getting to that point where I'm listening to the guy and I have to turn it down. I turn it down after the commercials and I just kind of leave it down and just listen to the radio instead. It just I could picture exactly what the call is going to be. So I don't know. There's a lot of things that just need to be tweaked on that, but I don't know what the answer is going to be on that or where that's going to be heading. But heck, I don't know. Weird world out there. Let's see. Looking here. All right. Oh gosh, yeah. Anybody else remember Tyler Head and doing his videos? His videos where he made fun of the broadcast. I thought those were great. There were those, and then there was the TBK Fame Flame ones where they had like the great thing was like the Tyler Head videos. He did like he always made fun of the TV broadcasts, and then the ones in the TBK group seemed like they kind of made fun of the radio broadcast. Like they both have their own distinct style where the TV ones sound really boring, and then the radio ones are like way too over the top, and there's no happy medium really. There's no ESPN in the late '90s kind of thing. Those are always great. A lot of those videos you can't find anymore, which is unfortunate. I should have just down. If I knew they were going to be taken down or just hidden or whatever the algorithm does now, I would have just saved those years ago. I would have saved those in 2009 or 2010 or something. I remember Tyler Head always yelling about Sam Hornish all the time. He was a hardcore Jeff Gordon man. And every time Hornish would cause a wreck or something and screw up a restart, like that would be something he just go off about. I mean, those were a hoot. The Xfinity Gauntlet. Hey, there we go. I left that open. I should have put that on the table. That's perfect. That's perfect. The Xfinity Gauntlet would be the one that would get the Cup guys out. Not just half of them, all of them. Perfectly balanced as everything should be. um, goodness me. Let's see. Oh, that was the thing I was about to mention. Um, I have a video coming up tomorrow. I'm going to post it. I'm going to make it publicly available. It's a video that I posted last week. People in the Patreon have already seen it. I posted it last Monday. I'm going to make it publicly available tomorrow. It's a video on late 90s NASCAR. It's a video essay. I kind of wanted to have a little bit of a different approach, kind of versus some of the other videos I've been doing recently there. I like the historical videos, but I want to kind of try to do like a commentary thing too and kind of try some different things. So I just made this one, kind of put it together and kind of toyed with it for the last couple of weeks. And I'm really pretty happy with it. But I mean, we'll see. You know, it's videos have changed so much now since the time that I did it. I feel so old compared to a lot of these kids these days. Your M. Lemons, your S1AP channels, your you know, things like that. I go back to the Tyler Head thing where I'm just doing whatever video I can get, and if the audio quality is as good as it can be, I mean, I can just work with it and try to turn it up as best you can. And then you know, not doing a lot of graphics, but doing just having the videos kind of tell the story a bit more than anything else. They may not be as flashy, but I think it's a good video. I wouldn't put it up there if I didn't think so. I think it'll be really. I'm really interested to see what more people think about it because I haven't had a whole lot of. I got a few comments to the Patreon, but of course it's a larger group there from beyond that. So I'm really looking forward to sharing that with you guys. I'm gonna try to get that up there tomorrow morning there and get that up so you guys can see it. And I got a couple things I'm gonna be doing tomorrow as well. We got a media event actually at the Sonoma Raceway tomorrow. I'm gonna have some more information on that on Twitter as it goes. There's gonna be some information on that, and I got some other things that I have kind of on the back burner to get ready for Sears Point as well. Some for you fans here and readers as well. I may one of these books here. Maybe going home with somebody here that can pick the last place finisher of the race, but I got a little twist to it this time around. So stay tuned for that. I'm going to have some more information on that. I have been in talks with the Sonoma Raceway about doing a book signing at the track. Haven't heard back from them yet. That's another thing I'm going to follow up on tomorrow. I don't know if it's going to happen or not because, I mean, there's, among other things, the Sonoma Raceway is actually doing a book themselves on the 50th anniversary of the track, which is really neat. I want to pick one of those up myself, but I don't want to interfere with that. But if they have any room for me, I'm going to see if I can kind of get my way in there. And if I have any other information on that, I'll certainly let you know. For those of you that are going to be at the Sonoma Raceway and you didn't get you have your book, you didn't get it signed, definitely bring it. I'll let you know where I'm going to be. I'll be happy to sign it. That's another thing too. Any of you guys out there watching this, yeah, no problem at all. I've met with a few fans before there, whether it's at the Jeff Gluck tweet up or just around the media center or anything like that. Yeah, no problems on that at all. Also, I had a fan actually contact me that wanted one of these LASCAR hats. So I'm in the process of fishing that order for him. So appreciate it to the gentleman out there, and we'll get your order together there very, very soon there. So get this for the nice summer months. Nice white hat works really well in the summer. If you're like me in particular and you're all forehead, you need something like this so that the sweat doesn't completely ruin it immediately. It takes a little bit longer, but that works. So we're gonna get that together. Oh gosh, so many things this week. You got to get the entry list storylines this week for Sears Point. Can't wait to see what the entry list is. I don't know how many people are showing up. Not holding my breath. We're going to get a full 40 car field, which is unfortunate. Never thought I'd have to say that, but we only had 37 guys at Watkins Glen last year, and I think 38 at Sears Point. That's pretty bad. It's not the times where you had the Winston West guys out there anymore and a lot of different competitors out there. But just if we can get a few more of the open teams, it'd be great if like Carl Long's team came out, or I don't know if Rick Ware is going to bring all three of their cars, or if we're going to see anybody new. I mean, I'm not sure. I'm not seeing anything really, new coming through or anything like that. But you never know. You never know with these guys. You never know what sponsors land there. The Tommy Dreese thing with Starcom Racing kind of came out of nowhere last year, just the days before the race. He's always a hoot to talk to there, whether he's driving one of his movie sponsored cars or anything. That's always the thing. It was a little bit disappointing he had the Go Share sponsor. It was a great throwback to the old Chaparrals, but it was like it wasn't quite as iconic as doing like the Ice Age car, the Hercules car, or the Counselor car that got destroyed at Watkins Glen or anything like that. Those are some great paint schemes. It'd be great to see something like that in person. Oh gosh, yeah, Bill McNally entering an old car at Sonoma. I was just watching qualifying for Sears Point the other night. I was watching on my break, and they had in the first few minutes of it, you actually see Bill running his own car in the race. Of course, Napa sponsored, just like all the other ones there. And getting into the not being able to get in the race though, unfortunately, something broke on the car and it dropped some fluid on the track, and they had to delay the session quite a ways there. But hey, living the dream, getting out there and trying to turn some laps and get your car in the field. Eventually, he did get a car in the field. He got good old Austin Cameron into the 2004 race and at Sears Point there. So those are the stories that are interesting to see. It's unfortunate you don't see them as much at these shorter entry lists, but maybe that'll be a thing that turns around. But yeah, I mean, for a coast to coast trip, I'm hoping that maybe since it's 2 weeks off, maybe that gives people some more time to get a car together and come down here. I think when you had the race right after Michigan, especially this year, it would have been really problematic because we had the race postponed today from rain, and then of course that screws up a lot of schedules, not just Jimmy Johnson's trip to Greece, but anything else in between. But I'm sure we're gonna be hearing more about that the next week or so. But yeah, so lots of stuff coming up here for Sears Point, and we're going to get some more information on that coming up this week. So we'll start with the video. We'll start with the media event, and then kind of get the ball rolling from there, and that'll be good. Like I mentioned, I got some earplugs ordered recently, some earplug headphones there that actually work better at the track. I mentioned it last year at Phoenix. I was trying to kind of keep the communication in the infield. And while they did have great Wi-Fi there, so you could see stuff on your phone, it was really difficult to actually hear what was happening or even see it in some cases because the garage area is like built up in such a way. So I have a scanner already and everything. I was just kind of working with that so I could actually hear what's happening and then still be able to tweet that information if I'm out of the media center. I don't want to be stuck in the media center just listening to the computer the whole time. That's no fun. I like going out the garage there and actually catching with some of these guys going to the garage, especially at the beginning of the race. That's the most exciting part of it there. But it won't be ready in time for Sears Point. I'm going to improvise with some other headphones I have here and try to make that work as best as possible. But then the other race we're going to be doing in Mosport in August, they'll be ready by then. And I'm really excited about that because that's one of those many races that Fox doesn't bring their own crew out or anything like that. They just have, like, I guess they have their pit reporters, and that's about it. So I think that'd be a really exciting one to cover. We're going to be talking with our friend Rob Taylor up there and doing some work up there. Maybe doing another race. We might be squeezing in another one there. I flirted this earlier this year about possibly doing Darlington again this season. I'd really like to. I've been hearing things that I can and cannot confirm that have made it sound that weekend, this year's throwback is going to be exceptionally interesting. I don't know, how much of it is true or how much of it is whatever, but it's definitely made me look at it a lot closer. We had a great time at it in 2017. That was back at the real thrust of getting the research done for the J.D. McDuffie book. That was when we talked with Jimmy Bird and the late Wilbur Thomas. Condolences again to the Thomas family that he passed away recently. But great guy. Lots of great information that we collected that weekend there, and then the weekend to top it off, and meeting a lot of the veterans there. There's so much to see. For anybody who hasn't done Darlington yet, I recommend it to everybody. It feels like almost backyard racing. It's such a throwback track just for the visuals alone, and then you already have the throwback activities thrown on top of that. It's just the perfect place for it. It really is. And a lot of these guys just come out of the woodwork. Just last year, we ran to Billy Fulcher, who I don't believe ever actually qualified for a cup race, but attempted to run the number 45 a number of times. Great he recognized the website when he saw like the lanyard I had with the name of the website on it and everything. So, this is there are guys out there that follow the site and that follow the back of the field even today, and that's good to see. And that's also one thing I'm gonna be working on now at Sears Point. Is going to be working on the project with the next book I'm working on. Still not ready to make an announcement yet on what the subject is, but I think it's gonna be something you guys are gonna like. We're gonna get something that's very much in the same vein as the J.D. McDuffie book. I'm not. I want to kind of have it be. I was talking about this with some coworkers the other night, and I was thinking it's like, well, is it kind of like a series? And it's like, well, it kind of is, really. I'm kind of thinking more, even if it's not like a direct sequel. I mean, it's just not like continuing things. They're not going to all be books about J.D. McDuffie. But I mean, it's going to be other stories very much like that. And NASCAR is chock full of it. I mean, there was a time where owner drivers were pretty much the only guys out there, or small teams or single car operations were the only ones out there. So this will be very much in that, and we're getting rolling on that too. Got a lot of irons in the fire right now. Very excited about it, but we're getting close to that. Speaking of getting close, let's look at this again. Okay, we are an hour and 3 minutes into the wait, so hopefully we should be getting here pretty close. Let me check my Twitter feed here again and see what's happening. Let's see. Okay, post race update. Chad Fincham doing an update here. All right. Taking another look. Is Pockris at the track? I don't know if he is. I think I know Utter's at the track. They're probably, especially after this disqualification, they're probably going to be okay. Okay, yeah, Chris Knight looks like he's there too. The win the name Brett Moffitt, but no one told Chastain. Oh boy. Okay. Let's see. So we should be getting pretty close to a call here. There's cross. Let's see. Joe Kraft Jr. having a good run today, as high as 14th in the race. We would like to see the race go 50 more laps to see what Noah Gragson could have done, says Chris Knight 54 minutes ago. Ross Chastain on MRN Radio says his Nice Motorsport team is fired up, but his team is determined to get back in victory lane, and that his team refuses to give up, says Chris Knight 57 minutes ago. So good report on that. All right. Wow, the owner of Camping World is none too pleased with the incident between Johnny Sauter and Austin Hill. Oh, hang on. Where'd that post go? Ah, get it back. I want some Marcus Lemonis anger. Wherever it's pronounced. Gosh. Goodness. Ah. Okay, he is a... Okay. Totally unacceptable behavior, says Mr. Lemonis. Run hard, turn hard, push the limit, but find the clear line between right and wrong. It was crossed. Not my call, and it's good that it is not. Well, again, next couple days going to be interesting, not just between the build-up to Sears Point, but the resolution of what was happening today in Iowa between Ross Chastain and also the Johnny Sauter part of it. Penalty day is going to be interesting, and where it all phases in from there. Let's see. Yeah, my goodness. Well, when you anger the guy that owns the company that sponsors the series, you've really done something. I mean, that's like, man, oh man. Let's see. Still not seeing it here. No calls yet. Sales posters will not count. All right, I'll leave this one open. I'll leave this open just in case anything new comes down the pipe here. All right. Let's see. Meanwhile, the J.D. McDuffie book is up to 21 customer reviews on Amazon. So big thanks to everybody who's left a comment on there. It really helps me out. Just again, the more comments that video gets, doesn't have to be doesn't have to be a 5-star review. Again, give me an honest review. That's going to make it as best as I can get on this. I want to improve and make each book even better than the last. Appreciate all the help on that, because yeah, that gets us more views on there. We have a comparable amount of actually reviews to some of these other big names. We actually have more reviews than Joe McGinnis's They Call Him Kale, which is quite the task, I would say. And we're right up there with He Crashed Me and So I Crashed Him Back by Mark Betchel. So we're getting up there. We're getting up there. It's a competitive business. They still show it listed along with Dale Jr.'s book there, so that's good to see. And we'll see what happens from there. Let's see. I'm taking another look. Still don't have the inspection results here. All right. So, but yeah. So yeah, looking at the entry list for Sonoma, just looking at your comment, Tom Karan, the 753 and 96 will enter if I had to make a guess. Well, it'd be interesting to see the 7 come back, especially if it were under the NY Racing team. We still haven't heard anything from those guys since they were supposedly going to run Mustang back at Daytona. Nothing new on that. Nothing new on Victor Obaika's team. Nothing at all. It has been absolutely silent, at least on my end. I'm not seeing anything new beyond that, at least from any of the other traffic I'm seeing in the other channels that I follow as well. So I know about as much as you guys do on any of that. It'd be interesting to see if they come out. You never know. Maybe they put in an entry list a couple weeks ago and forgot about it, and now suddenly it'd be like, oh, wait a minute, maybe they are going to enter. Yeah. I would think the 53 is probably a good chance. I think 96 is the best chance. I imagine Parker Kligerman's going to try it again because he was in it last year, and he seems to have his head screwed on right when it comes to road course racing. So we'll see what happens there. The Rick Ware team, they debuted the 52 car last year in this race when Cody Ware was running it, and unfortunately they had all kinds of mechanical problems. I think they actually had a similar issue to the fuel pump issue that we saw with Ryan Sieg earlier today. Boy, I have framed that monkey picture just right in the middle of the shot, and I don't know why I did that. I'm sure that's really distracting, but we're so far into the video, I'm not going to change it. I've tried some stuff a little different since our last. I did the other show at the other place last week for what was that race? For Michigan. That's right. The Michigan race was in the afternoon. That was a lot of fun. But I moved some lighting around a little bit too. I think the last few of these shows I had like too much of a shadow from the hat here, so I'm trying some different stuff with that. I got another light fixture here set up, and we're kind of getting a little bit of a studio feel here. We got the Last Car shirt, the bumper sticker here, and my anime cat girl picture up there, and all that. So, let's see. Okay. See, gosh, I tried to do it slower, and I'm still running out of steam at the end of the show. I don't know if that's just from being up last night or if that's just from today. Of course, we only had 2 races, so that's a different part. I think it probably works out to being maybe about 30 minutes talking about each race. And so if you had 3 races, it's going to fill the entire gap there while you're waiting for the inspection results. Other than that, it's just more of a thing. One thing I've thought about doing on this show, I thought about it actually from the very first one, is maybe putting a timer like right over here, and then you can actually see like how close we're getting to the hour and a half. Although it might not be kind of unnecessary because you already have the timer up here on the screen, and so you get an idea of how long the show is. But the show is a little bit after that. Oh, did I watch the 24 Hours of Le Mans? Good question, Ben. I didn't, unfortunately. I should have though. Usually I stay on top of the 24-hour races when I'm working because I already do the night shift and it's kind of cool to follow it along. I'm usually pretty good about that with the Daytona 24 hours because I always seem to work that weekend. But the 24 Hours of Le Mans always throws me off because it's always like right before Sears Point and my mind is already at Sonoma and I'm not thinking really about other series here. I barely remembered to watch the races here today for Iowa. But no, was it good though? I mean, it was. I heard what Alonso won in one of the divisions or something. So I mean, if so, good for him. I'm no historian when it comes to that series. I've seen the movie. I've seen the one that what was that? Is that the one that Steve McQueen did the movie about back in the day? Okay, Alonso and Toyota's number 8 car. Okay, good for him. Good for him. Well, certainly after the disappointment in Indy, it's good to have him have something to smile about there. But he'll be back. He'll be back. Maybe he'll be in NASCAR. Who knows? Um, yeah, gosh. Porsche pulled out. That's kind of surprising. I was thinking a European event like that, they probably want to keep as many of the European brands in as possible. Oh, my Mucinex is poured out. Watch in amazement as I drink water for an hour and a half. Okay. Um, Formula E team. Okay. I'm not sold on Formula E. That's still um I just think Power Wheels whenever I hear that high pitched screeching of those cars going around there. And they did this ad campaign that was just about as bad as the first ad for the electric car back when GM was making them, where they seemed like they were so unwilling for it to take off. They made the ad as terrible as they could. They said like, okay, well here's racing, but it has no noise and it has no smell and it has they run out of batteries and it's run by the FIA and it's not run by NASCAR and it's like okay it's like none of these things sound good to me like I mean like okay but okay yeah I went to the one in New York okay so I mean they're experimenting with different venues I mean I guess if you're running basically what are large RC cars you don't really have as many logistical concerns because they run into each other and like that very first race they did and what was it Alan Prost's kid goes out there and gets in that wreck in the last corner and then drop it and then the guy he runs into the car just sounds like a suitcase just got dropped like somebody just dropped a suitcase from like a foot off the ground it just goes chunk and like that's just even the accidents are just weird like there's like electric engine is going to go from whatever speed to zero like instantly and then you're just rolling and then it's just a piece of plastic and it's like I don't know I mean no racing is pure racing anymore I mean every racing series has it's diverted from it in one way or another but I don't know it's maybe it'll grab me eventually I mean if they did something up here I mean that would be kind of neat Nick Heidfeld that's right yeah so there was that one that was a weird one but yeah so there was that I'm thinking like if I do another, I'm looking at doing some more videos and probably making them exclusive to the Patreon, and then we'll do some other videos that are going to be on publicly on the YouTube like this. I'm still figuring out which needs to go where. I'd like to do some kind of video on like diecast stuff, but I don't want to do like the diecast review thing because I think that's always pointless. Like somebody buys you buy a thing online that anybody can get, and then you bring it out and you open it up and you show it in front of the camera, and it's like, well, this is how it's going to look to like anybody. Like it's the same one as anyone else. I mean, if any of you guys do that stuff, I mean that's cool. Like I mean that's fine. But I mean I just it's a different deal. I think, and I think on the other end, if you have something exceptional, if you have something that's like unusual, or something maybe you made or something like that, I could see that. That's cool. I mean, there's a lot of people that do that stuff. I love that. I've picked up some from some guys like I did like some of these starting park cars back in the day. Those are great. But yeah. Oh, the 27, not the 7. Yeah, it could be the second premium car. That's right. that comes back, but who knows on that. That would be certainly more likely, but anything's possible. Oh my goodness. Yeah, for the Sonoma injury list. Yeah, I got you, Tom. So that makes sense. Um, yeah. Well, here's one thing. Here's one thing. I showed this on camera the other day, and these right here, like I'm surprised they don't make these anymore. I mean, I guess it costs a lot to make a tiny little like rain slicker to put on the car, but like little things like this, it's never the big things that are the things that get missed. It's always the little things. If you do like a little thing like this, and then you have like a little canopy that you can just take off, and it's like a little fabric deal here. It's like basically just like really thin, like it's like the material that they make like grocery bags out of now, the reusable ones. But it's just made like there, and it fits perfectly on the car, like stuff like that. Like that's the kind of neat thing. Of course, the late Kenny Irwin here. This is always a scheme that I think about for back in the day. There, I think that it's tragic what certainly what happened under those circumstances, and one of course, less significant part of that tragedy is I thought this was just a cool looking car. And Kenny Irwin was, I mean, I mentioned this in the past. Irwin was like the first guy I ever wanted to do like an interview of because it always seemed like he was distracted or just kind of thinking about something. I don't know if he was just like, if he was kind of dismayed, or maybe he had too much pressure on him from taking over the Robert Yates car from Ernie Irvan, or if there was some kind of deal going on behind the scenes. And then you see other clips with him where he's laughing with Kenny Wallace, and he seemed like he's just kind of a happy guy. So, never had a chance to meet him. I had a picture of his car from this same car from Sears Point back in 2000. It was the first picture that a friend of mine scanned for me years ago, and I still have that one too because that was cool back in the day. But it's different things that you could do to promote the sport. This is kind of something I'm kind of doing in the video actually. This latest video I'm gonna have come out tomorrow. It's kind of talking about the way the sport used to be, the way the sport used to be marketed. I think that's a big issue, and it's really hard to explain that in words. I mean, again, just like this, you need kind of a visual cue here. If I would say like, oh, they made diecast with like their own covers, and it's like, well, what does that mean? Or what would that look like? It's like, oh, well, it would be like this, and then you'd have like a little thing like that. But yeah, I thought that was always kind of neat how they would do that. I mean, they didn't make too many of them, but I mean, I was just kind of digging through some old stuff here and finding a way to do that. Um, let's see. Got to be close now. Oh yeah, we're down to about hour and 20 in now. It's a little bit, something about 8 minutes ahead of where the clock is here. Oh, we have one new tweet on Chris Knight's page. Nope, okay, nope, nothing new on there. Had some fumes in the cockpit, Chris Knight says, answering your question about what happened to Brandon Brown earlier in the race. Let's look here. Decent day for those guys. Is that Bassett, Gutters, and Moore still in the number 90 even when they had a different guy in the car? That's interesting. Oh, I'd be remiss about this. How come this is the last thing I'm thinking of saying? Happy Father's Day to all you guys out there on there. I hope I'm not distracting too much from your activities on this. I don't want this to be appointment television or anything like that. Certainly for holidays there, but certainly very happy Father's Day to all you out there, and or for those of you who are fathers or otherwise, um, and. And for those of you who fathers are no longer with you, I mean they're always with you. You know that. So that's the important thing. Um, so let's see. I don't want to vamp for too much longer here. If I just fall asleep on camera, I don't think that's going to be very entertaining either. You're just going to be. Everyone's going to be a dare and see how much longer people can see this until the camera just conks out. Probably the battery on the laptop will conk out first. Um, we are very close. We are extremely close to getting. Oh, what's this? Oh no, that's right. That's right. That's an old thing there. Okay, yeah, nothing there. Got to clear up my email this week too. Really anxious to get this, this article up there for the truck series thing there. I'm gonna get that posted, like I say, pretty soon here. I don't have too much left to fill in on the Xfinity article. I went ahead and got the outline on it. Hopefully, within the next little bit, that'll work. Kind of kick on the auxiliary fan. The computer's starting to warm up a little bit. Let's see. I'm looking for a new book to read too. I've been kind of between books lately. I got to shop around a little bit at um, the library. I know my parents have reorganized some of their stuff there, and I had a couple things turned up there. I might look there, but if any of you guys are reading something right now or something that sounds good, yeah, definitely let me know. I'm kind of in the market for finding something that's going to be interesting going forward. Um, and I'm kind of big on like nonfiction. I like nonfiction. I have a hard time getting into fiction. I'll go ahead and bring this up. Like whenever I read something that's fictitious, like I could see all the decisions along the way. It's like, okay, well, I know this is a made up story from what this guy is presenting this as, but why did they decide to write it this way? Why didn't they do it this way? And why did they do this? Why did they not do that? That's exactly the wrong attitude to have, of course, when you're reading fiction. I mean, you're not going to enjoy like Harry Potter or something like that if you're constantly thinking that. And I'm not saying like pointing out mistakes. Like I'm not into that. I'm just thinking like I can't stop thinking like, okay, if I were writing this, I would do it this way, or if I would write this character, I would put this person here, or something like that. But that's why every writer is different. Everybody has their own different inspiration. Everybody has their own kind of thing there. The Atrocious Laugh, the Cowie Leonard story. Can't say I've heard that one. Or My Atrocious Laugh. Okay. Well, give me your pitch, Beast of Metal 1989. I've never heard of that one. That's the name sounds familiar though. I'm sure it's going to hit me in the back of the head here if I think about it too much. I've read. Let's see. What are some examples of some other stuff I've read here? I got my shelf there in the back there. I read Fatal Weekend that was on Ayrton Senna's accident. I wish that one was a little better written than it was because there's a lot of interesting information in there. It just felt like kind of a rough draft of it. It would have been nice if that was a little bit better there. Oh, it's that Cowie letter from the NBA Finals. By the way, a little bit of insight for here on the West Coast. I know that it's been an embarrassment of riches over here because the Warriors have been winning the NBA Finals like every year. Like I don't even follow basketball, and I've noticed that. I mean, actually, the place I work is actually one of the presenting sponsors of the Warriors. So the fever has been high, but I think there seems to be a mutual understanding that look, the Raptors just had their day in this one here, that they earned it, that the Warriors at the same time they had a whole lot of injuries that really kind of messed them up there. I mean, it certainly played a role, but everybody seems pretty well resigned to it. I don't think there's not been, from what I've heard at least, there hasn't been like any real riots or like real a lot of crazy stuff. I mean, I work in the emergency room. Remember, if there was a lot of crazy stuff going on, I'd probably know about it first. I'll tell you what, but. Without getting into details that I can't get into, I haven't really noticed anything like that. And I've heard some conversations from people who are talking about it, and it's not even something where people are like, "Oh, I just don't want to talk about it. I don't care about it." It's like, no, they're saying like, "Look, good for the Raptors. Good on them." I think people realize a story where the guys that don't win all the time finally do, and everybody's pretty happy about that. So that's good to see. That's good to see. And I think people are pretty happy about that, and that's good to see. 2019 Boston Bruins. Well, there you go. Yeah. Well, that could be closer to the Stanley Cup playoffs. I follow them even less. I mean, hockey. I'd like to be into it more because I know our local team, the Sharks, there seem to be a factor at least in getting close to not being there. But they have a good fan base up here, and that's really big. But haven't done that yet. I need to branch out into some more sports. I am going to go to a ball game tomorrow. Since my dad's out of town today, so we're going to bring him by here. We're going to take him to a ball game tomorrow. We're going to do that, and so that'll be cool. We kind of do Father's Day on Monday this time around. baseball's been more big in this family besides the racing thing. The racing thing kind of started more organically between my brother and myself. Before that, my parents met at a football game. My dad's hardcore into baseball, so that's kind of been more my experience at the time, beyond sports there. Although I was a rower in college, and that came out of nowhere too. But that was a whole different thing. Might even do a video on that maybe. That was just a crazy time. um, I'll tell you what, that sport gets you in the best shape you'll ever be in. It would be, working out and rowing, because you have to basically, it's horizontal weightlifting. You are not just lifting the weight over your head or pulling it at you. You are sitting down and you are pulling water resistance at you, but you are doing it at such a high rate at 30 times a minute when you're rowing those boats that you are getting a cardio workout and a weight workout at the same time. It will, if you have, I mean, I was basically like this when I was in high school, and I got down to like 170. I'm like 240 now. I was like 170 at my peak when I was in college down there. That will iron you out like a well-made shirt. If anybody's ever looking to like get into shape quick, rowing will do it. It will absolutely do it. Elemental, the water will do that stuff. In hindsight, if I had to do it over again, I probably would have done cross country instead. I'm not a big team sports guy. I kind of like the individual thing. But that's a whole, like I said, it's a whole different thing. But yeah, I got to say, I've been very surprised by the reaction here in Northern California after the Warriors lost, and it was unfortunate. I mean, it was a lot of things ending at the same time. I mean, the Coliseum there closing its doors, or the Oracle Arena not hosting the Warriors anymore, and now they're gonna have that new stadium in the city, and everybody's excited about that, of course. But that whole deal is a different thing. Hey, there you go. You're in cross country, Ben? Nice. There you go. Oh, you have inspection there? Let's take a look. I see Chris Knight has 5 new tweets. I'm sure one of those is probably that. That would be good. Yes, 5 minutes ago. Inspection is clear. We do have a call. Inspection is clear in the Xfinity Series garage. No issues. Christopher Bell is the winner. I think we're just on the edge of the gap here. Somebody just texted me too. There it is. Oh yes, just 1 minute and 15 seconds away from the threshold there, just short of the 90-minute mark. So we do have, okay, that's getting a little bit of traffic. Neat. Okay. So Bell has passed inspection. Christopher Bell has passed inspection. There will be no double disqualification today. The only disqualification is still Ross Chastain from the Truck Series. So I will wrap it up here pretty soon here. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up here now so I can get the Xfinity article up there, and we'll post that on the website. And we're going to have a lot more stuff coming up here this week as we get started for Sonoma Raceway, the return of the carousel, 85 laps around the track there. Is it 85 laps, or to go up to 90 again? 85 to 90 laps. If there's a green white checker, who knows? But it's going to be a really interesting race. It's going to be, we'll see who gets on the entry list. We'll see what the stories are going to be. And, of course, we will see who finishes last in the race, and that's going to be the big story from there. So, in the meantime, lastcar.info is the website. Patreon.com/lastcaronbrock is the Patreon. And the Twitter is @lastcaronbrock. Again, thank you very much to everyone for tuning in today. I hope you enjoyed the racing today at Iowa. Have a very happy Father's Day. And, best wishes and everything. And the final thing I want to bring up here, we are going to do a disqualification show next week. However, since I'm going to be in the media center, I don't think it's practical to do it this way during the race. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try to follow up on some stuff at inspection at the track there, and then do a follow-up live stream the day after the race. So it'll be sometime on Monday, probably around this time of day. So we are going to do a Sonoma Raceway disqualification show. It won't be a full-on disqualification thing because we're not going to be timed necessarily to that. But we're going to follow what's happening with disqualification at the track and then do kind of a wrap-up video on their live stream like this on Monday. So stay tuned for more details on that. We got a lot of stuff coming up here, including another starting grid video for the Sonoma Raceway weekend. So I'm going to get started working on all of that. and we will go from there. So again, thank you everyone for your support, and we will see you next week.